Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. The phone buzzed once. Then again. I didn't mean to look. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't one of those wives who obsessively checked his notifications or questioned his whereabouts every time he left the house. I trusted him. But that night, trust didn't stop my eyes from catching the glow of his screen. It was late. He was in the shower. His phone was on the nightstand. We just finished dinner, a quiet one. The kind where he barely said a word. Pushing food around his plate while scrolling through Instagram under the table. He mumbled something about a long day and went to rinse off before bed. I wasn't looking for trouble. I was folding his laundry. But when the screen lit up again, the words froze me in place. Can't wait for our dinner. Just us this time. I missed you. A heart emoji. A wink. My fingers stopped folding. My breath caught in my throat. I stared at the message. Not from a coworker. Not from a group chat. Just a single name saved under something vague. L. Client. I knew that name. I knew that lie. And even though every cell in my body screamed to put the phone down, I tapped the screen. I told myself I was just checking. Just confirming it wasn't what it looked like. It was worse. There were messages going back weeks. Months. Times he claimed to be at conferences or business dinners. Pictures, blurry ones from restaurants, parking lots, hotel lobbies. And her replies. Playful. Flirty. Possessive. You smell like me. You left your jacket at my place again. Do you think she suspects anything? My hands were shaking. I sat down on the edge of the bed and scrolled further. Through text after text that felt like knives. Digging deeper with every swipe. There was nothing vague. Nothing left to the imagination. Every word was a confession. Every "I miss you" was another betrayal. I tried to breathe, but it felt like the room had no air. He had kissed me that morning. Said he loved me. Laughed at a joke I made about how bad his tie looked. Told me to stop being so cute. And all along he was living two lives. One with me, quiet, predictable, stable. And another with her, exciting, stolen, shameful. I put the phone down when I heard the water stop. My heart was pounding so loudly I was sure he'd hear it through the door. I sat there, laundry forgotten. Hands clenched into fists in my lap. He walked out of the bathroom humming. Towel over his shoulder. Smiled when he saw me like nothing was wrong. He didn't notice the phone had moved. Didn't see the way my body had gone still. He just leaned down to kiss my forehead and said, "You okay?" I nodded. Because in that moment, I wasn't ready to confront him. I wasn't ready to scream. Or cry. Or throw the phone at his face and demand the truth. I needed time. I needed control. Because what I saw in those texts wasn't just betrayal. It was a plan. A pattern. A man who thought I'd never find out. And suddenly, I knew one thing with absolute clarity. He thought I was weak. And that meant he had no idea what I was capable of. I stared at her smile for a long time. It was the kind of smile meant for photos, practiced, soft, the kind that doesn't quite reach the eyes. I'd seen it before, but I couldn't place where. Not in the text messages. Those were words and winks and half-naked selfies sent from unfamiliar angles. But this was different. This smile was in my house. Or rather, had been. It hit me while pouring coffee the next morning. I was scrolling, numb, half awake, doing what I told myself was research. Learning more about the woman who'd been messaging my husband. I found her through a tag in a group photo, then followed the digital breadcrumb trail. Mutual friends, tagged events, community boards. Her name was Lisa. Pretty. Polished. PDA member. 2 kids. Married. Married. That stopped me. I clicked her profile again, slower this time. Scanned the photos. Her husband, tall, clean-cut, looked like he worked in tech. Their kids. Christmas cards. A family hike. Smiles that made me sick. Then I saw it. A picture of the school fundraiser. And in the background, behind a table of silent auction items and cupcakes, my kitchen window. It was our backyard. I zoomed in. There she was, standing next to my husband, wearing a dress I remembered complimenting the night of the event. She had shaken my hand, smiled, told me I was so lucky to have a husband who volunteered. She had eaten food from my stove, laughed with my friends, sat in my dining room. That's when I dropped the phone. It hit the counter with a thud, but I didn't move. Because this wasn't some abstract betrayal. It wasn't a faceless fling. It was her. She had stood in the same space where I baked birthday cakes, where my kids did their homework, where I cried during late-night dishes, never knowing she had already touched the same countertops. I pressed my palms against the edge of the sink, breathing through the sting in my throat. I wanted to scream, but what came out was a whisper. You're not just cheating on me. You're erasing me. Because it wasn't just about sex. It wasn't even just about lies. It was about being replaced. Quietly. Carefully. In all the spaces I had built. That night I didn't speak to him. I made dinner. I sat across from him at the table. I nodded at his stories. I laughed when he made a joke. I kissed his cheek when he said he was going to bed early. Another long day tomorrow. But inside me something shifted. The woman I used to be, soft, trusting, forgiving, she sat down for the last time. And the woman he didn't know existed? She picked up her phone, looked at Lisa's husband's face again, and whispered. He deserves to know too. The reservation was for 7:30. Table for two, tucked in the corner near the glass wall. Just far enough to feel private, but close enough to see every table in the main room. I'd chosen the restaurant carefully. Not one we ever went to together, but one I knew he liked to take her to. I'd seen it in the texts. The name was mentioned 3 times. Our little spot. Can't wait to taste that wine again. Just you and me this time. I booked the table next to theirs. But I didn't go alone. Lisa's husband opened the door for me when I arrived at his house. He didn't say anything at first. Just stood there, holding the printouts I'd delivered 2 days earlier in a sealed envelope. The screenshots. The photos. The restaurant confirmations. Every truth I could fit on paper. He'd called me the next day. Voice quiet. Controlled. Let's do it, he said. Just that. Now, standing in his living room, I noticed his hands shaking when he handed me my coat. He was dressed sharp, no ring. Not stiff, composed. A man already grieving a marriage, but not willing to let it die silently. You don't have to speak, I told him. You don't have to yell or cry, or do anything dramatic. Just be there. He nodded. We arrived 10 minutes early. I asked for our reserved table and smiled at the host like it was any other night. I could feel the heat of the blood pumping in my ears, but my voice didn't crack once. Lisa's husband followed behind me, silent, unreadable. We sat, ordered wine, looked over the menu, and waited. At exactly 7:29 they arrived. I saw them before they saw us. He held the door open for her like he was some gentleman, and she walked in with a bounce in her step, hand curled around his arm like they were teenagers sneaking away from curfews and parents. They looked happy, confident, unbothered. That lasted 6 seconds. His eyes scanned the room first, a habit of his. Always surveying, always checking. Then he saw me, and stopped. His body stiffened. His jaw tightened. His hand slipped from hers. She followed his gaze. And that's when she saw her husband. Her smile evaporated. For a split second, all 4 of us locked eyes. No one moved. No one said a word. Just 4 people, 2 tables, 1 truth. The host gestured to their reserved table. They sat. Awkwardly. Slowly. She kept glancing back over her shoulder. He wouldn't look me in the eye. Her husband folded his napkin carefully, placed it in his lap, and reached for the menu. Order whatever you want, I said softly. I already have, he replied. The waiter came over. A young man who had no idea what kind of hell he was walking into. He took our drink orders, stammered a little, looked between us and them like he could feel something electric and dangerous pulsing through the air. We didn't speak loudly. We didn't cause a scene. We let the silence do the work. Their table was no longer private. Their secrets were no longer sacred. And they knew with every bite they tried to swallow and every sip of wine that caught in their throat, that the night wasn't theirs anymore. This was dinner for 4. And it was going to taste like truth. He couldn't stop fidgeting. From across the room. Not more than 5 feet away, but emotionally galaxies apart. I watched my husband try to pretend this was just another dinner. That he wasn't unraveling under the weight of my silence. That I wasn't sitting a single table away from him, with the man whose wife he had been sleeping with. He adjusted his collar, picked up the menu, set it down. glanced at the wine glass like it might offer some kind of escape. Lisa sat stiffly beside him, her smile now gone, her posture sharp. She clutched her phone in her lap like it might buzz with a reason to leave. Her eyes flicked between the table, the floor, and her husband, never fully landing, never fully safe. Across from me, her husband sat in complete stillness. He didn't blink much, didn't frown, didn't lean forward or backward. He just watched them. Not with rage, not with pity, just with full, unrelenting awareness. The waiter returned, this time visibly nervous. He took their orders first. My husband cleared his throat twice, stammered something about the special. Lisa didn't speak. She barely managed a nod. When the waiter turned to us, I smiled. Sea bass, I said. Extra lemon. The other man ordered a steak, medium rare.
Noge se taschen.
The waiter walked away like he'd just escaped a lion's den. And still, not a word passed between the tables. But the look said everything. My husband finally met my eyes. He didn't smile. He didn't flinch. He didn't blink. He just looked at me and saw someone he no longer recognized. Because I wasn't broken. I wasn't curled up at home crying into a pillow. I wasn't screaming or accusing or begging. I was sitting across from the man his mistress married, with full control of the evening. His jaw clenched. I raised my wine glass. Not a toast, just a gesture. He didn't return it. Lisa shifted in her seat and whispered something. He didn't respond. Her husband, still calm, reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope.
No teatrix. No flair.
Just slid it across the table toward me like it was the bill. I opened it slowly. Inside were photos, grainy, timestamp, damning. My husband and Lisa. In a car. In a hotel. In a restaurant, this very restaurant. They'd been careless. Brazen. Maybe they thought they were clever. I took out the photo from this location. Held it up. Lisa saw it. Her face drained of color. Then I did something none of them expected. I stood up, walked over to their table, and gently placed the photo between their plates. She looked at me like I had reached into her chest and crushed her ribs. He didn't move. I leaned in, just enough to let him hear it over the clinking silverware and ambient jazz. I made the reservation before you did. Then I walked back to my seat. The silence that followed could have cracked the walls. The photo sat between them like a burning centerpiece. Lisa stared at it as if it might vanish if she blinked hard enough. Her fingers twitched toward it, then pulled back. Like touching it would make it more real. Like admitting it had been printed by someone who now sat just feet away, dressed in calm and wrapped in clarity. My husband didn't look at it. He kept his eyes on me, trying to find the woman he once convinced to believe in him. The one who thought lateness meant work, that silence meant stress, that distance meant nothing. But she wasn't here anymore. In her place sat someone composed, unbothered, dangerous. The waiter returned with our wine. He approached our table carefully, like walking through a landmine field. I thanked him. Took a sip. It was good, citrusy, dry, bold. I didn't take my eyes off my husband as I drank. He still hadn't touched his glass. Lisa finally reached for her napkin. She dabbed at her mouth, even though she hadn't eaten a bite. Her lips parted like she was about to say something, but no sound came out. The table between them stayed still.
No arguments. No excuses.
No pathetic, it's not what it looks like. It was what it looked like. And worse because it had been deliberate. They had built this affair with hands that touched their spouses afterward. Smiled at school events. Sat beside their children while pretending to love someone else. Across from me, Lisa's husband finally spoke. Not to me. To her. You left the back door unlocked last Tuesday, he said quietly. Lisa blinked. What? I came back. I saw his car parked down the street. I waited in mine. You didn't know I was there. But I knew. She swallowed hard. Her nails dug into the cloth napkin on her lap. He continued. Calm. Unshaking. I watched him leave. I watched you straighten your dress. Then I went back to the house and locked the door behind me. Lisa's face crumpled in slow motion. You knew, she whispered. I knew, he said. And you didn't say anything? I was waiting, he replied. For this. She covered her mouth with one hand. My husband still didn't speak. He just looked at me. But now there was something else in his expression. Panic. Not the kind that leads to confession or apology, the kind that sets in when someone realizes the game is over, and they never saw the checkmate coming. The food arrived. Plates placed in silence. The smell of seared steak, roasted vegetables, and lemon fish drifted into the thick tension, ignored. Lisa pushed her plate away. My husband finally touched his fork, then set it down. It clinked louder than anything else in the room, and still I didn't say a word. There was no need to shout. The devastation was already done, clean, controlled, brutal. I smiled, not out of victory, but because for once they had to sit in the silence they created. And we weren't going anywhere. He followed me out before the receipt had even hit the table. The waiter hadn't brought the check yet, but that didn't stop him. He stood up so fast he nearly knocked his chair over. Lisa called his name quietly, like she was trying to grab the fabric of his shirt without moving. He didn't look at her. He only looked at me. I didn't break stride. I walked straight to the valet stand, calm, composed, aware that half the restaurant was now pretending not to watch. The other man, Lisa's husband, stayed behind. Still sitting. Still sipping water like he had all the time in the world. But mine was standing 3 steps behind me, breathing hard, eyes darting between my back and the parking lot like he was chasing someone who didn't exist anymore. "Please," he said. Just that. One word short of breath. A desperate whisper on the sidewalk. I turned. He looked wrecked. Red in the face. The kind of pale that comes from adrenaline and guilt all at once. His tie was crooked. His hands were clenched. "I can explain," he said. I smiled. Not kindly. "You already did. I read it all, remember." He took a step closer. "It wasn't serious. You and I, things just got distant. I didn't know how to talk to you anymore." I raised an eyebrow. "So instead of talking, you took her to the restaurant we never could afford unless it was an anniversary?" She made me feel. "Stop." I held up a hand. "You don't get to say that to me. Not now." He swallowed. His throat moved hard. "You're my wife." I reached into my purse and pulled out a small folder. Plain. Labeled. Silent. I handed it to him. He didn't open it right away. Just stared at it like it was radioactive. "They're copies," I said. "Of everything. The texts. The photos. The credit card records. I kept the originals with my attorney." "You talked to a lawyer?" he asked, voice cracking. "No," I said. "I hired one." He blinked. The shock was starting to settle into his bones now. "I thought we could work through this." "You thought I wouldn't do anything," I cut in. "You thought I'd cry. Maybe scream. Maybe break things. Then you'd say something half true, half sorry, and we'd pretend it was fixable." I took a step closer. Close enough that he could see there were no tears in my eyes. No shaking in my hands. "But here's the thing," I whispered. "You weren't just cheating on me. You were rewriting me. In her eyes. In yours. In those messages. You turned me into a joke to make her feel special." His shoulders slumped. I wasn't done. "You disrespected me with intention. With repetition. With planning. That's not a mistake. That's a character." He opened the folder. Looked at the first page. Photos. Printed texts. Time-stamped receipts. All of it. "You're serious," he muttered. I tilted my head. "Dead serious." He reached for my arm. I stepped back. "I'm not yours," I said. The valet pulled up with my car. The tires whispered against the curb. I didn't rush. I turned once more to look at him. His mouth opened, but I was already stepping inside. People say aftershock feels like silence, that it creeps in when the blast is over and settles into the spaces left behind. They're not wrong. The first day after that dinner felt like winter inside my chest. Not dramatic. Just cold. Still. The kind of quiet that makes every sound louder. The hum of the fridge. The ticking of the hallway clock. The sound of my own breathing. He didn't come home that night. I didn't expect him to. Instead, I sat on the couch with a blanket and a cup of tea that went cold without me noticing. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just watched. Let the stillness wrap around me while I stared at the framed photos on the wall. Photos I hadn't realized were all centered around him. The next morning I took them down. By the third day the messages started. Can we talk? I made a mistake. You're still my wife. Don't throw away what we built. He sent flowers. Roses. The cliché choice. A sad attempt at symbolism. Red for love, as if petals could patch betrayal. I didn't answer. I watched the stems wilt in the vase. I got a text from a mutual friend later that day. I heard what happened. If you ever want to talk. Polite. Pitying. Careful not to take sides. But sides were already chosen. They just didn't realize it. The whispers started after that. At the store. At school pickup. At the gym. Little glances. Half smiles. The long pause before someone said my name. It spread faster than I expected. The news, the story, the versions of it I didn't control. People pieced it together through social posts, through the fact that his car wasn't in the driveway anymore, through the sudden absence of couple photos online. Some said I was brave. Others said I was cold. They all had opinions. But none of them were there when I folded my husband's laundry the night I found the texts. None of them sat across from their own husband's mistress and stared into the eyes of a woman who had walked through your kitchen like she belonged there. They didn't know the silence that followed betrayal doesn't echo. Presses. I told the kids he was staying somewhere else for work. Just for now. I didn't lie. I just simplified the truth into something their hearts could hold. Lisa's husband sent a short message the same week. Divorce papers signed. Served yesterday. Hope you're okay. I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. I'm not. But I will be. He responded with just a heart emoji. Nothing romantic. Just human. By the end of the week, my husband emailed me a long letter. 4 paragraphs. Regret, nostalgia, rewrites of our history. He painted himself as confused, misguided, missing something. He wrote that he loved me, maybe not perfectly but deeply. I read it once. Then again. And finally I hit reply. I typed 3 words. I'm not yours. Then I turned off my phone. And for the first time since everything cracked open, I slept. Not soundly, but deeply enough to know I was done. I didn't wake up one day and feel better. No moment of clarity. No inspirational playlist. No dramatic haircut or tearful breakthrough. Healing didn't arrive like a sunrise. It came in fragments, small, scattered, uneven pieces of myself I had to pick up one at a time, unsure where they fit. The first Monday after the dinner, I went grocery shopping and forgot half the list. I stood in the middle of the cereal aisle for almost 10 minutes, just blank. I wasn't sad. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even thinking. I was just existing in a body that hadn't learned how to move without collapsing. The next day, I tried to clean out the closet. I touched his shirts. Folded a few, put others in a bag. Then I sat on the floor and stared at a single pair of shoes for half an hour. Not because I missed him, but because I didn't know what to do with the space he left behind. People called. Some genuinely cared. Others just wanted the inside scoop. I could tell by the way they hesitated before asking, "How are you really?" I didn't have an answer. I started writing again. Not full pages. Just lines. Phrases. Things I couldn't say out loud. I am not unlovable, even if he chose someone else. I am allowed to be angry. Today I brushed my hair and that's enough. I cried once because the dishwasher leaked. Another time because I saw a couple holding hands at a red light. And once, embarrassingly, because I remembered the way he used to bring me coffee on Sunday mornings, before I knew those hands touched someone else. Some nights were quiet. Others were loud. I'd walk from room to room. Not looking for anything in particular, just trying to fill the silence with motion. It didn't help, but it felt better than lying still. I picked up painting again. It had been years. At first, I hated everything I put on the canvas. The colors were too harsh. The shapes didn't make sense. Felt childish, forced. But I kept going. Something inside me refused to stop. Like my hands knew what my mouth didn't. That creating was how I'd start to rebuild. I painted through the ache. One night, I added a streak of gold over a dark blue swirl. It looked ugly. Too bold. Too bright. But when I stepped back, I realized something. It was the only part that felt alive. So I left it. Every day after that, I painted something. Not masterpieces. Just moments. Not healing. But proof that I was trying. He started reaching out again. Little things at first. A message reacting to an old story I'd posted. A forwarded meme. A photo of our dog, the one I kept. He'd never asked directly how I was, just left a breadcrumb trail hoping I'd follow it back to him. But I didn't. He tried again the following week. A longer message. You look good lately. I mean that. I hope you're happy. I read it and stared at the screen for a long time. Not because I missed him, but because I couldn't believe how little he understood. He thought I needed compliments to feel whole. He thought I was waiting for permission to move on. He thought this version of me, clearer, stronger, quieter, had bloomed for him to notice. He still didn't get it. One afternoon, I ran into him by accident. Grocery store. Frozen foods. He was standing there holding a basket of microwave dinners, and he looked smaller somehow. Not physically. Just dimmed. He smiled when he saw me. That smile he used to wear when he thought charm could fix anything. Hey, he said like we were old friends who just drifted apart. Hey, I replied, polite, neutral. You look great, he added. Seriously. You're glowing. I didn't thank him. I just nodded and reached for my bag of frozen berries. He shifted his weight. It's weird not seeing you around the house. I looked at him and said, it's not weird for me. That silenced him. For a second he looked like he wanted to say something more. Like maybe he had rehearsed some version of, I miss you, or let's talk in his head. But he couldn't get the words out, because I wasn't giving him space to. I turned to leave. He called out, you've changed. I stopped. Not because it hurt, but because it was laughably predictable. I looked back at him and said, no. I just stopped pretending I was smaller than I am. And I walked away. He didn't follow. Later that evening he posted a throwback on his story. A photo of us from a trip we took 3 years ago. Captioned, some people never leave your heart. But I didn't belong to his heart anymore. I belonged to myself. It was a Tuesday. Not a special occasion. Not an anniversary. Just a Tuesday. The kind of day that slips by unnoticed unless you choose to make it yours. I made a reservation at a restaurant I'd never been to before. Not the one he used to take her to. Not the one we once claimed as ours. Somewhere new. Somewhere mine. I wore a simple dress. No dramatic lipstick. No effort to impress. Just comfort. Just softness. Just me. The hostess greeted me with a warm smile. Table for one? Yes, I said. I booked the corner by the window. She checked her list, nodded and led me through the dining room. Soft lighting. Clinking silverware. Distant laughter that didn't belong to me but didn't threaten me either. When we reached the table, she gestured to the chair. You'll like this one. It's quiet, but you can see everything. Perfect. I sat. Placed my phone face down. Took a deep breath and smiled, not because I was trying to prove anything to the room, but because I was happy to be here. Alone. Present. Whole. The waiter arrived and offered the wine list. I asked for tea instead. He seemed surprised but smiled. When he left, I looked out the window and watched strangers walk by, busy, distracted in their own timelines. I imagined versions of myself in each of them. The woman rushing with takeout, the one holding hands with someone she's still learning, the one wiping mascara from under her eyes. I had been all of them. Now, I was someone else. Someone who didn't wait to be chosen. Someone who didn't sit in silence hoping someone else would remember her worth. Someone who made space for herself and dared to enjoy it. Midway through dinner, a young couple was seated nearby. The woman was overdressed, laughing a little too loudly. The man barely looked up from his phone. She reminded me of me. I caught her glance just briefly. I nodded. She gave a small, uncertain smile. It wasn't my place to say anything, but I hoped she'd find her table too one day. My food came. Warm. Simple. Delicious. And with every bite I tasted something new. Not revenge. Not victory. Peace. This was my table now. No games. No lies. No one else's permission. Just a woman who had been shattered and rebuilt, not by love lost, but by the love she finally gave herself.